And if we zoom in a little bit more on the center of excellence, how we structured it, we essentially see 6 different components. So it's governance, enablement and training, the AI champion network, intake and prioritization, and an operating cadence and tooling. But to be clear, this is the finished picture as it runs today. So we did not stand up all 6 at once, and you probably won't either. But I just wanted wanted you to see the whole thing first, because each piece here covers a gap that the others leave open. And as we go through them, the useful question for you may be more or not that much whether we did this well. It's more, what would our version of this look like? You know? So diving a little bit deeper into the governance part, for us, as George already mentioned, governance is the foundation. So, but it also should not be a one-size-fits-all. So one process for everything either slows everything down or it protects nothing, usually somewhere in between there. So that's why we decided to run it in 2 ways, depending on the type of work that we see in the company. So for the larger, more complex use cases, as mentioned, that's where we have a formal assessment before the development starts. So business value, risk, and complexity are all part of the considerations that we take in, that we take here. And that assessment is not there to just slow things down. It's actually how we prioritize. So we want to understand the value, the risk, and the complexity before we even invest in development time. And for the citizen development part, we do take a different approach. So here we do not put a review in front of every agent that someone builds. We wouldn't be able to keep up, and most of these builds are low risk anyway. So instead, the risk is handled in the tool setup itself. So the tools that we use have primarily read access first. The write access is only to certain internal systems. We have no automated external communication, no external access into the platform, etc. So all these guardrails are built into the tools, not into a review meeting. And the result is that governance does not become a bottleneck for that small work, but it also doesn't disappear. And that matters because the real problems all come from ungoverned work. So imagine something goes to production on an unapproved tool. You get a security incident, legal needs to get involved. And essentially all of this is avoidable. And the way I think about it is that governance is not what slows you down. It's what keeps you from having to roll things back. And this doesn't have to be heavy. If you operate inside a larger company, you probably do not own legal or IT security. In that case, the practical version is to agree with them once on an approved tool list and data rules for AI. And yeah, after that, your teams can build inside those lines without asking for permission every time. So that's the governance part. The second component is enablement. And those two really belong tightly together because tools plus rules without skills means essentially nothing happens, right? So that's why we built a 3-tier fluency pathway. And tier 1 is mandatory for everyone. So that's a short self-paced module, 30 to 45 minutes. It covers what AI is, how to use our approved tools safely, ethics, and practical examples. So here, everyone gets certified. And that gives us a shared baseline across the company. And it also gives us something concrete to show to clients when they ask how our people are trained. Tier 2, is team-specific and voluntary. So that's more hands-on training built around real use cases from and for that team's daily work. And then tier 3 goes one level deeper even into the specific functions within each team. And one thing also that we learned along the way, especially regarding enablement, is that this is never done. So as you know, AI is advancing at a rapid speed. So the tools change every quarter, and the training has to be able to keep moving too. Which is why we run weekly open hours, regular sessions, and obviously a lot of peer-to-peer learning. And peer-to-peer is actually a good keyword because that is the next component, the AI champion network. So every department nominates 1 or 2 AI champions. And these are not the most technical people. So they're domain experts. They know the processes. They can work with the AI tools. And most importantly, their colleagues listen to them. So their job is to own the AI topics in their department. They bring use cases and gaps to the COE, and they also share what works with the other departments. And this is the honest answer to the question, how do you scale without a headcount? So here we see a central team of 2 or 3 people who obviously cannot support hundreds of colleagues, right? So that's why we have 12 or to 15 champions, each inside their own team. And that way you have a colleague showing you how to use AI in your actual workflow, which is far more effective than any training video from a central team. And also one important caveat, this only works if the role is taken seriously. So our champions have protected time for it. It's part of their goals, not an extra duty on top of a full workload. And if the champion role is only a title, the network looks good on a slide, but it doesn't really do anything in practice. Next component that we have is the intake and prioritization. So here we can answer the question, where do we start? Because this becomes a working process instead of a discussion, right? So every larger use case goes through 5 stages: requested, discovery, development, live, and decommissioned and rejected at some point. And each stage has an owner and clear criteria for moving on. And for prioritization, we score 3 things during discovery. So business value, complexity, and risk. And then everything lands on a simple impact and effort matrix for prioritization. Now, the biggest advantage is that this becomes your single source of truth for all AI use cases in the organization. As you're all aware, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So once every initiative lives in one place, a whole set of things becomes possible that was not possible before. You can share knowledge across teams because you can see who built what. You can measure the performance and the impact each use case actually delivers. And you can report progress to leadership with real numbers instead of anecdotes. And maybe the most encouraging part here is version 1 of this was not a platform. It was a list. So you can start this in a spreadsheet next week. And what matters is not the tool. What matters is that the pipeline is visible and the trade-offs are out in the open. So if you're wondering what the very first concrete step in your organization could be, it's probably this one. 2 more components, briefly. So the first is cadence. So a pipeline without a rhythm around it stalls. So that's why we have 3 recurring meetings. So we have an operational one for blockers and cross-team use cases, an organizational one where we ask what is holding people back and what the COE itself should do better, and then a strategic one each quarter to set the focus. And second is the tooling. So our rule is standardize where you can, specialize where you must. So we have a small set of enterprise-grade AI tools that cover most of our use cases. So roughly 1 for the business users and 1 for the technical side. And if a use case generally needs something outside that stack, that's where the review process, that's where a review process comes in. So, the standard stack is the default, and exceptions need a justification. And this discipline is also what makes the citizen development guardrails enforceable in the first place.